Hello and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, then welcome. I'm Jess Cannell and I would love to earn your subscription today. Well, one of the things that we do on this channel is talk to people who have some connection with the JFK assassination. In the past, we've talked with, for example, Marianne Moorman, who took perhaps the most famous photograph of the moment that JFK was shot by crossfire. Another person that we've spoken with at length is Robert Groden, who is the longtime JFK researcher who brought the Zapruder film to the American people in 1975. He worked with Oliver Stone on the JFK movie, and we've had a lot of conversations with him about the Zapruder film, its reliability, and just the assassination in general. Well, today, the person that we are going to be speaking with is longtime JFK researcher Brian Edwards. He is one of the authors of this book. This book is Admitted Assassin, Roscoe White and the Murder of President Kennedy. It's by Ricky White, who is Roscoe's son, and it was told to Gary Shaw and Brian Edwards. And I sat down with Brian Edwards actually on the 62nd anniversary of JFK's assassination, and we talked about this book. This story, if you don't know, is about Roscoe White. His son came across different pieces of evidence throughout the 80s and into the 90s, and the story of Roscoe White unfolded. There have been twists and turns along the way as the story was presented to the public, and then you'll hear in the conversation that we have some of the stumbling blocks that were created by Ricky's mother, Geneva. But this story goes into whether or not Roscoe White was the shooter behind the picket fence on the day of the JFK assassinations. So I hope you enjoy this interview with Brian Edwards. I'm here with longtime JFK researcher Brian Edwards. We are on the steps of the Old Red Courthouse. Yeah, just on the edge of Dealey Plaza. We came over here because my mics weren't working. I've got to figure that part out, but hopefully the audio will still work and we're nice and close to the camera. But he is here. He was willing to talk about their book. Him and Gary Shaw and Ricky White are the authors of Admitted Assassin, Roscoe White and the Murder of President Kennedy. And I have not had a chance to read it. Another person at the banquet that we were at won it. It's a signed copy by all three men, and she donated it because she said, "You're doing such good work with the channel, I want you to have it." So I haven't had a chance to read it. I'm looking forward to it. I did look through it has an amazing appendix at the back that gives a date-by-date calendar of everything that was happening with the Ricky White story. Very fascinating. So I did look through that last night. I've got some questions for him. Brian, I'm so thankful that you were willing to come and talk with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I like to put the word out as many times as I can to let the word go out, and hopefully people can help us out with the investigation. I hope.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would love to hear for the channel. I'd love for them to know, how did you get into the case? What cultivated your interest in JFK and in the assassination?
Well, I was 7 years old in Kansas City as a second grade student, and we learned from our teacher that President Kennedy had been shot in Dallas, and they let us out of school that day. And I went home, and my mother had been crying. I could tell she had been crying, and I didn't know why. And I said, "Well, what's the matter? Is something happened to my father?" And she said, "No, the president's been shot." That didn't concern me because I didn't know what a president was. And so that Sunday, we watched television, I think like everybody else in America, and we watched, I didn't see it live, but I saw a replay of Oswald getting shot by Jack Ruby. And I remember my father saying, "Well, now we'll never know the truth because the suspect has been killed." And then the following day, on Monday, was the funeral of President Kennedy, and I was just fascinated by watching the funeral and the military guys. And it wasn't too long after that, my dad and mother had bought a book produced by the Kansas City Star called The Torches Past. It's a picture book, coffee table picture book.
We've gone through it on the channel.
And so I sat there and looked at that every day. And finally in 1969, when I was in ninth purchased the first book of my life called Rush to Judgment by Mark Lane, and I read that cover to cover. And he basically said the Warren Commissions didn't do their job, and all these witnesses they didn't talk to should have been talked to. Maybe it would change the outcome of the case. So that's what started it.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's the story of a lot of Americans. I hear from a lot on my channel who had the very same childhood memory you described.
Yeah.
Of a teacher telling them and going home and finding their mom crying, but not really understanding it. The people who are still with us are the people about your age that remember childhood memories of it. Yeah.
Yes.
So I hear that kind of story a lot. It makes sense. I think there's still a lot of us, and I was born after all of it happened, but we feel that the injustice back there is what's still affecting us up here.
Yeah.
So,
Nothing's changed except the dates. It seems like.
Well, this book, we have gone through the story of Roscoe White on the channel several times.
Okay.
I've walked viewers through that, but this is actually written by Roscoe White's son, Ricky White, and Brian Edwards was one of the researchers that helped him bring his story to the printed page. So I would just love to hear first. I mean, here's a photo of the three of them there with the canister. I would love to hear, Brian, like, what has it been for you? I know Gary was there at the time when all of it came out. Were you there? Tell me about your interactions with Ricky and how you came to be a part of it.
Gary and several other researchers had a research center right over here on the West End. And we were here for a conference, or I was here for a conference that was co-hosted by Gary. And Larry Howard came to me on the side and knew my background of law enforcement, and he handed me a little ticket and says, would you come to our midnight showing of a video that I think you'd be interested in? I said, okay. So we went there, and my wife and Casey Quinlan and I went there, and we watched a home video that Larry Howard had shot about the Roscoe White West Texas connection. They found in Van Horn, Texas, an abandoned hut that Ricky remembers going to as a small child with his father and military men shooting at dummies in the canyon, and he watched that, and that was kind of scary when you saw that. Well, fast forward to 2014, Gary Shaw, who was the guru of research, the JFK research community, approached me and said, I have all these files on the Ricky White story, which I didn't know had happened, that Ricky had come forward with all this memorabilia. And he said, would you help me write the book? And I said, I would be honored to write the book with you. I said, if I'm going to do this, though, I'd like to have your access to your files. Well, you have to know Gary Shaw. He doesn't give files up to anybody because he's collected them, and it's that's his livelihood.
Yeah.
And so he says, I will let you take these home and copy them. And so as I'm driving home, I'm hoping, please nobody hit me in the rear because all those files will be lost.
Wow.
But I copied over 4,000 pieces of paper that he had collected over the years of investigating the Roscoe White story. And so we decided to sit down and put the story together. And Ricky was very instrumental in providing us with documents and photographs. And without Ricky's help, we wouldn't have the book that we have today.
Wow. Yeah, so, I mean, we've gone through it on the channel, but the gist is Roscoe is purportedly where behind the fence on November 22nd?
He's behind the picket fence, close to that three-trunk tree that's about 20 or 30 feet down from the corner of the fence. He was there, and in fact, one of the pictures in the book is a picture that Mary Mormon took, and he had Roscoe with pencil had drawn a circle around a specific part of the fence with an X on it, indicating that's where he was. And so basically followed his diary and said, this is, I did this, I didn't feel good about it, but that was an assignment. And Ricky couldn't have made this up. There's no way. He could explain this no more than he explained the origin of the sun. So there's no doubt in our minds that Ricky is telling us the truth.
Now, one of the complications was the whole Geneva mess.
Yes.
You want to encapsulate that for the viewers?
Geneva White, I never met her. Gary met her a couple times. She had some medical and mental issues. She was given, I don't know if you know that or if you talk about it, but she was given multiple shock treatments to erase her memory.
Yeah, yes. She had purportedly like 26 shock therapy treatment sessions because, according to her account, she overheard a conversation between Jack Ruby
That's right.
and her husband.
That's right. That's right. And Jack threatened Geneva, threatened her, the life of her and her children, if she told anybody. And reportedly was that Roscoe said to Jack, "I'll take care of her. Let's just leave her out of it, and I'll take care of it." And then the following January, it was January '64, when she went in for her first shock therapy. Yeah.
So then later, she has all these mental problems, but later she kind of gloms onto the story and adds details and embellishes.
She writes. I believe that she manufactured another diary, and it was in pen, which wasn't available back then. A felt pen. She talked about Roscoe being involved with the Watergate burglars. Well, Roscoe was dead in '71. The Watergate burglary happened in '72. So it was quickly determined that she had written that, trying to get money basically to support her medical bills, and it was quickly determined that it was a fake.
But by doing that, it sort of cast a aspersion and
Absolutely.
discredited the entire story.
Yes, it did.
So you guys have come together to bring the actual evidence and story here.
I think it's a pretty accurate representation of what Ricky went through, what he had, what he tried to do with his father's memory, or the memory of his father. Ricky is not a researcher. He's basically just didn't know what to do with this material that his father had left. So he was glad that we wanted to write his father's story, and we sent him chapter after chapter to get his approval. Is this right? Are we telling it correctly? And he said, "That's exactly the way I told it to you." So.
Yeah, and there's such a neat series of stories about just the pacing of how information was found, as well as just even like actual photography of what was found, things like the cables. Do you want to describe the cables for me? Have you seen the cables?
I've touched them.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Ricky found a canister, a military-grade steel canister.
Is this it?
That's it.
Okay, so this photo on the back shows that canister.
It's a watertight, military-grade metal canister. He found it in the attic of his grandfather's house in Paris, Texas, and took it home, opened it up, and found all kinds of artifacts. He found one single dog tag of his father. He found three negatives to family members of his grandmother and aunt, and his maternal grandfather. There were two newspaper clippings encased in laminate, one of Jack Ruby and one of the Warren Commission being turned into President Johnson. And at the bottom of this canister was wrapped in tissue paper was a green stenographer textbook. And inside that textbook, Roscoe had pasted or glued newspaper clippings relating to the assassination with a series of numbers and dashes and symbols that we didn't know what they meant. But in Roscoe's handwriting, in the front and back cover, he wrote his name, his serial number, saying, "This is my book." And hopefully if somebody finds it, they'll know what to do.
Was anyone with Ricky when it was found?
No.
Okay. But you guys, Gary and others had gone to try to dig in other places.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ricky remembers one time they had a small little summer cabin at Lake Whitney. And he's told Gary, he said, "I remember one summer we went there and I saw my dad spending the whole day digging a hole, and he put something in it." He described it. It was, 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet square metal box.
Yeah.
So it wasn't this canister.
Yeah,
It was totally different.
Yeah.
So Gary, Joe West, and Larry Howard and Ricky drove down to Lake Whitney and dug up most of this property and trying to find this, but it had already been removed.
So that's a question I had actually. I wondered if they ever used a metal detector because it was described as a metal box. Do you know if they ever used one?
I don't think they did. That would have been something.
It just makes me. I have a friend who has a cabin down in Lake Whitney, so it made me think. I wonder if that address is still available. If somebody would let us metal detect the yard.
The property's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a couple questions I had. So the laminated orders. What was the laminate that was used? Has it degraded over the years?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it was very thin. It's almost like laminate, but it's not. It's pliable and it's stiff. It's not like what we see a laminated document today. It's very brittle.
Has it deteriorated and cracked?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
It has.
And the paper inside has faded?
It has faded considerably. Yeah.
Were photos taken previously?
Yes.
Okay.
As soon as Ricky found those, he took them to Gary, who took at that time highest resolution photographs as he could, and they Xeroxed through the laminate into a Xerox machine.
And those are in here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. And then I just wondered, when you first heard the story, do you remember, were you skeptical from the start?
No.
Or did you believe it from the start?
Absolutely.
What was your response?
When I first saw the video that Larry Howard had shown us about Roscoe being a police officer and behind the fence and having access to the investigation, I thought, what a perfect cover. He would be in a position to know everything that was going on. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a perfect plan to have somebody on the inside and be a shooter in uniform on the fence to tell people, go away, stay away from here.
Was he wearing a hat that day or was not? Okay. So
not.
Robert Groden has told me about a photo, which you may know the photo I'm talking about, but that's of the rail yard, and it shows back in the background a policeman who is not wearing a hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you believe that's Roscoe? Is that who it is?
I don't think, to me, it's not clear enough to know.
Okay. All right. And was there anybody else that says that they saw him there or can place him in the area at that time? Tell us about that.
Bobby Hargis was a motorcycle rider escorting the president's motorcade. He was on the left side next to the car.
Is he the one who got the face full of... Okay.
Yes. And he said, I thought the shot came from across the street. I parked my motorcycle, I ran up the steps, and I encountered Roscoe White behind the fence. And the interviewer asked, well, what was Roscoe doing? And Bobby Hargis remarked, well, he was looking for the shooter just like I was. Well, here's my question. I would have followed up with a question. Roscoe White wasn't even in the academy yet. How did a seasoned veteran officer know who this guy was?
Oh.
He wasn't even in the academy.
Huh.
So I don't know. And we know Roscoe went to work that morning. At least Geneva said that when Roscoe left for work that morning from their house, he was wearing a shirt and tie, but carrying his uniform on a hanger and put it in his car.
Huh.
So this is before he was in the academy. What was he doing on November 22nd?
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow. Okay, so something I learned, like I said, I haven't read your book all the way through yet, but I did browse the timeline in the back, and I noticed that in 1969, someone unexpected lived in the same neighborhood as the Whites.
That's right. Marina Oswald and her husband and her two daughters lived 2 blocks from the Whites in Richardson, Texas. Mm-hmm. And one of Marina's daughters,
it says Rachel.
Rachel walked to school every day with Ricky when they attended, what was the name?
Richardson
Heights Elementary School.
Yeah.
They walked to school together.
That's one of the pieces here in their timeline is that 2 blocks north of the Whites.
Yeah. Can you imagine being a teacher, not knowing Ricky White and Rachel Oswald were connected to the assassination and they're in her class?
Yeah.
That would be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is wild. So there's all sorts of information in this book. I think you guys are going to really find it interesting. I can't wait to get home and have a chance to read portions of it. Maybe I'll read a little selection here or there to you guys, but you'll want to get this book. I really appreciate, Brian, you sitting down with us.
Thank you.
such a gift. Now,
Appreciate it.
you live out of the area. Where
Right.
is
I
home?
live in Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so thankful to get to meet you and have this conversation. I'm really
Thank
grateful.
you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. One of the other things that I wanted to point you to that Brian Edwards has done, he gave a talk at the City of Allen Public Library a few years ago, and the whole video of that talk is online. In that talk is one of the things that we have talked about on this channel, and so that's why I'm wanting to bring it to your attention. He goes through the decades showing photos of the yellow stripes in Dealey Plaza, and that contributes to their veracity. But on top of that, he actually has photos of the bottom of Beverly Oliver's shoes. She is the woman who claims to be the babushka lady that was in Dealey Plaza that day. She said she stepped onto the curb and that yellow paint was on the bottom of her shoes, and she didn't realize it until later. And there are photos of the bottom of those shoes that she still had many years later with that yellow paint. So that might be of interest to all of you. Well, I hope you enjoyed this interview, and I hope you'll get the book. The link is in the show notes. It's Admitted Assassin, Roscoe White and the Murder of President Kennedy by Ricky White. And like we talked about in the video, it has not only the story itself, but it has tons of photographic evidence, as well as in the back. What I found really helpful was this timeline that goes point by point about the dates and how this story came to light, which I find very helpful to understand the story and the nature of it, as it did come out in pieces. And so go ahead and check out this book and let me know in the comments what you thought of Brian Edwards and the talk that we had that day. I hope you have a great day. Take care.